First story is Dr. Erickson. You guys might have seen him. I used a clip of it in my last video. He did a press conference. I believe it was with ABC, local news station, but he did a press conference and he explained his, findings as a doctor. He's on the front lines and he's saying, listen, this is what I think. This is the data that I have. I think it's been we've overcompensated. What we're doing is very harmful to constitutional rights, to the hospital industry. He even explained what I explained in my video yesterday. It's going viral because it's obvious. It's the health experts or the health minister, her name is public health official of Illinois, Deborah Birx. No one's denying that the way they're counting the deaths is if you die with COVID, that means you died from COVID, according to them. Which, if you think about it, if this is a widespread virus, it's pretty crazy. Imagine if everybody who died from the common flu died of the common flu. You'd have 100,000. So looking at these numbers now, the more data we get in, it's getting crazier and crazier. So you're like, there's 60,000 people or so, 200,000 people or so worldwide, and you're talking about everybody that has it, even if they died from in the hospice. That's literally what the health expert says. She says, if they died in hospice and they didn't die from COVID, but they had COVID, we're still counting it as a COVID death. They're inflating the numbers. The doctor kind of sounded the alarm and said, listen, I don't agree with this. They deleted his video off YouTube, which is just absolutely insane. And I'm trying to figure out the logic behind it. Of course, YouTube has no logic. They'll delete AYTU Bioscience. They're a publicly traded company. They deleted them off of YouTube. They're a little heel light technology. They're a company partnered with Cedars-Sinai. They're a publicly traded company. They're no schmucks. They're no, little, holistic, Facebook, mom group from the UK or whatever. Not that mom groups are awesome. Let's be honest. I mean, mom groups from the UK, that's a powerful group. I'm just saying they're treating up like, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. No, this was AYTU Bioscience, publicly traded company on the NASDAQ, working with Cedars-Sinai. YouTube deleted their video, and then they delete Dr. Erickson's video. I just don't know what they're thinking. The only counter perspective I could give you is from, I follow Scott Adams, who's the Dilbert cartoonist, who's like, free sorts. He doesn't agree with that video. He thinks it was misinformation or something because of the data crunched. So Scott was kind of saying like, oh, they were lying to people. Anyway, here's my thing. I'm not for lying. I'm not for, phony projections and stuff. But the whole shutdown, the whole basis of what we just did to basically override our Constitution, to leave tens of millions of people out of work, to threaten the food supply chain, to really cripple the hospital industry and lay off a lot of nurses, tens of millions of jobs and even businesses are in the, in the loop, or whatever you want to say. We did that all based off University of Washington, whatever that institute is, that's funded massively by Bill Gates. I think it's the INHE models, or I don't remember the letter combination, but they were the reason we did all the shutdowns. That data was all fake. So how come they can have fake data? They can have fake models. They could have phony death rates from the World Health Organization to even, Lancet at a certain point. They're all speculating. It's a 3.4 death rate, says the World Health Organization. It's 2.0. It's 1.22, says Lancet. The more information we get, it keeps going lower. And at this point, if they're counting COVID deaths with COVID-19 as a COVID death from COVID-19, who knows how overinflated these numbers are. I'm not a skeptic of the numbers until I saw New York Times. New York is adding thousands of people even though they never got tested. This is not my opinion. This is not a theory. New York Times tweeted an article and said, we're adding thousands of people to the list even though they've never been tested. And now as it's coming out, you have the public officials saying, if they died with COVID, they died from COVID, according to our statistics. So I don't understand why everyone else is allowed to speculate. And then all of a sudden people want to get high and mighty when Dr. Erickson crunches numbers. It was Dr. Erickson's data as far as, how many people had it. Was it 100% accurate? Probably not, but whose information is? All we know is confirmed cases, which is the amount of cases that the government has tallied that people have confirmed. And then we have the death rate, which we now know is overinflated because anybody with COVID, they're counting as a COVID death, which they don't do for almost anything else in the health industry. So those are the only two numbers we have. Confirmed cases We know confirmed cases is nowhere near cases. So whether I guess, whether Dr. Erickson guesses based on his data, whether New York guesses, Cuomo said he thinks 1/5 of New York has it based on antibody tests. In Santa Clara County, they're doing antibody tests. In LA County, they did antibody tests. In Chelsea, Massachusetts, they did antibody tests. We don't know the numbers. All we know is confirmed cases is what we have. We know that's not right. Is it 5% of the population who has it? 10% of the population? 15% of the population? 20% of the population, like Andrew Cuomo speculates? We don't know. All we can do is guess. And that's what Dr. Erickson was doing. So this logic that Scott Adams is going by, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. I really like him. I think we like each other. But he seems to be the only conservative who seems like semi-okay with them deleting Dr. Erickson's video. So my question to Scott, or anybody on the liberal side who's okay with that, the Susan Wojciechis of the world, my question is, what grounds did you delete his video on? What basis did you have to delete Dr. Erickson's video? Are you saying his data was incorrect? Whose data is correct? Confirmed cases is not total cases. So the two numbers we have to go by, wrong and wrong. All we can do is guess. Cuomo guesses, I'm guessing, Dr. Erickson's guessing. We're speculating. All I know is the higher that the confirmed case rate goes, the lower that the death rate goes. The more people that have it that are asymptomatic, it means less of them are being calculated. And the more data that comes in, Dr. Erickson's right. I agree with him totally that, I mean, not totally. I think there's some things he said I don't agree with, but this basis to shut down, there's actually, I'm gonna look it up. It's a New York Post article. I'm gonna read it real quick. Thank you. It's the most people we've ever had, 9,300. Make sure you show Dr. Erickson some love too. Lines open. It's a doctor from the Bronx. I'm trying to share it, but I'm afraid they're gonna delete it. This is New York Post. I've worked on the coronavirus front line, and I say it's time to open up. This is from Daniel Murphy. He's an emergency physician at St. Barnabas Hospital in the Bronx. I'm just reading his article right now. I've been in the ER every day these last few weeks, either supervising or providing direct care. I contracted COVID-19 infection very early in the outbreak, as did two of my daughters, one of them who's a nurse. We are well, thank God. This is straight from his article. COVID-19 has been the worst healthcare disaster of my 30-year career because of its intensity, duration, and potential for a lasting impact. The lasting impact is what worries me the most, and it's why I now believe we should end the lockdown and rapidly get back to work. This is a frontlines doctor from Bronx, New York, writing an op-ed article in New York Post, works in the Bronx, got COVID-19, his family got COVID-19, and he's saying, I believe we should end the lockdown rapidly to get back to work. Are they going to delete the New York Post article? Why did they delete Dr. Erickson's article? There's no logical reason. It's because he was a doctor who had experience, who crunched numbers and said, I think we should get back to work. I don't see the shutdown. And there is no logical reason behind it. They're saying we're slowing the spread so hospitals don't get overwhelmed. We're overwhelming the hospital industry by not allowing elective surgeries. We didn't do a calculated approach. We did a one-size-fits-all approach, which is a terrible idea. Nurses are getting laid off. We have excess ventilators. We have excess beds. We have excess doctors. We have too much of it. And then we're still going by the same strategy we went by a month ago. And then people say to me, well, Trump ditched the old models. It doesn't matter if he ditched the old models or not. He's still following the logic of the shutdown. And they're talking about phase plans. You got Murphy and Newsom saying, we don't know when we're going to go back. Maybe, after. What logical reason is it? These are people, guys. These are people for months. They had experts on Joe Rogan. They had all these fact checkers from USA Today saying that sunlight doesn't kill the virus. But we learned, and this is, I'm not saying for sure, but we learned through the Department of Homeland Security, Science and Technology Division. They did a massive lab study with Johns Hopkins with COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2, whatever you want to call it, in saliva, and they found out that the virus gets destroyed in sunlight way faster than it gets destroyed indoors. So, a lot of the logic behind them closing down beaches and stuff, they were going off the science and the data that sunlight doesn't affect this virus. Joe Rogan's little virologist said it months ago. He said, heat doesn't destroy the virus. USA Today said it. They're all fact-checking it. And then we do have a study from our government, from the Science and Technology Division, from Johns Hopkins partnering, we do have evidence now that sunlight does destroy the virus earlier. So all their theories were going off of, it might not die in summer. But once they get that new information, do they add it? No, they destroy it. They delete it. They deleted, this is how crazy they are, guys, and you know it. They deleted a bioscience company traded on the NASDAQ, working with Cedars-Sinai with Heal Light UV technology. No, you shouldn't inject UV into yourself or inject disinfectants. That's crazy. No one in their right mind should do that. Seek a medical professional before you never do that. Anyway, but no one said that. They were talking about Heal Light technology. I don't have it. I'm not an expert to tell people to do it, but that company is an expert. They have the technology. They had the video. They're partnered with Cedars-Sinai. They have, they are traded on the NASDAQ, and YouTube deleted their video right before they deleted Dr. Erickson's video. These people are absolutely out of control, and regardless of if you agree or disagree with his theory or his strategy or Dr. Erickson's data, this logic that Scott Adams is going by and other conservatives, but mostly liberals, saying that, his data was wrong, it was biased data, all the data so far has been biased. We don't know how many people have COVID-19. We have no idea. But I'll tell you one thing for sure. The confirmed case rate that we're getting, there's a 0% chance. I'm saying 0.00% chance that confirmed cases is the amount of real cases. That's assuming that every single person who has coronavirus got tested. Every single asymptomatic person got tested. We know that's not true. So why is Bill Gates allowed to speculate? Why is the University of Washington, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, Fox, everybody in the world is allowed to push fake death rates, fake mortality rates, fake data, fake numbers, fake hospital projection, completely debunked theories about everything, including sunlight. They're allowed to do that, but then one doctor out of 10,000 goes the other way against the grain and says that, and now all of a sudden people are the gatekeepers of data. Like, oh, this guy's got the wrong data. We need to delete him. There's no precedence from that, and this is something that's ever evolving. So make sure you show that guy some love. I think he was on Fox News last night, and Fox News is going down the drain quickly. I believe they're throwing Diamond and Silk to the side because Diamond and Silk aren't pushovers, and although they've been great Trump cheerleaders, when push came to shove, it looks like Diamond and Silk have a mind of their own, and apparently that's bothersome to the people at the corporations, but whatever. So that's my bit about Dr. Erickson once again. Social media is out of control, especially YouTube, deleting bioscience companies, deleting doctors, deleting any dissenting information to justify their shutdown, which is not based off science. I'm sorry. They don't own science. This is the game that they've tried to play over the last 10 years. And I was actually on Laura Ingram's show half a year ago to explain that. I believe in science. I believe in environmentalism. I believe in protecting lives, but they're like the gatekeepers where anybody who disagrees with them, they destroy and silence and shut down as they push fake numbers, fake projections. Terrible strategy that's at this point provably wrong. You could Google World Health Organization 3.4 death rate. They said the death rate was 3.4. That's 34 times worse than the flu. With antibody tests, with data, we know it's at least 10 times lower than that. I'm even going to go and say there's a chance when it's all said and done, it might actually, the mortality rate might even be lower than things we've experienced in the past because they're cooking the books. It's not my opinion. I have to say this or else they'll try to censor it. It's not my opinion. The health director of Illinois, Deborah Birx, that's how they're counting the deaths. If you die with it, you die from it. So even with most likely overinflated numbers, if you consider the antibody tests and total cases, this death rate or mortality rate rather is nowhere near what they said it was, and it's astronomically lower, which is a good thing. But the people like me and Elon Musk and Dr. Erickson who push that, they try to censor and silence. It's disgraceful, and I can't believe they did that, but I can. Second thing I want to talk about is, the UFO thing. I saw that everywhere. We hit 10,000, guys. That's incredible. Thank you guys so much for being here. This is phenomenal. The UFO thing, I guess the Pentagon here, we could Google it real quick. The Pentagon released UFO reports. It looks like, if you look at the video, it looks like the same thing they released a couple years ago with Tom DeLonge and all that stuff. So it looks like either they're reusing, UFO footage that they've already released. I think it's the same one that was in the New York Times 2 years ago. But regardless, you could look into all that stuff. I just really don't care about it right now. Of course, I'm not trying to like cover up UFOs or anything, but what a weird time to release UFO footage. It's like literally tens of billions of businesses are shut down. Trump's flying Blue Angels over our cities while we can't even go to the park, or people are getting laid off of work. They're not allowing you to exercise your First Amendment right in some states. That's apparently against the stay-at-home order. I mean, and now all of a sudden the Pentagon just had a change of heart and was like, you know what? Yeah, we just really love people. We want them to know about UFOs now. I'm not really buying it. I think it's kind of a diversion purposely, and I think it's a bizarre time to bring it out. And I'm not a denier, but UFO stands for unidentified flying object. They absolutely exist. People see they've proven that. There's things flying that are unidentified, and it's an object, and they don't know where it came from. I don't know. I think it's a very strange time to like herd the masses towards UFOs. People have been talking about that for 20 years, and all of a sudden, today they're like, don't ignore the fact that you can't leave your house. Look at the UFOs. Now, we can revisit that in a couple months, and I'll talk about it, but right now it's far from my top concerns. Other thing I want to talk about is the mass testing, and then I'm going to answer some of your questions. I appreciate y'all being here, and I want to hear what you have to say. Someone said, I'm going to read this real quick before. Someone said, Erickson is in fact a physician, although not an MD, not even registered or considered practicing. Regardless of who he is, I mean, does Dr. Birx have her license, or when's the last time Dr. Birx practiced? Look that up. But I'm not saying she is or isn't. I'm just saying look it up. Overall, I don't really, I don't really care in the sense of what he was saying based on stuff. I already made my point. I don't really want to say it again. It's like if somebody else says it, whether it's me, whether it's him, what's the content of what they're saying? How are they portraying it? Is it true? Is it false? Is it worse than other stuff being out? I don't agree with the censorship, but we'll talk about it in a second. The mass testing and the Blue Angels stuff, I like Blue Angels. I like Thunder, the military. I like the Air Force. I'm appreciative. I'm respectful. I'm grateful. I just think it's a terrible time that Trump is flying them over. It just seems like a slap in the face, or like a throw a dog a bone sort of thing. It's like, dude, tens of thousands of nurses all across the country are being laid off, furloughed, hospitals going bankrupt. You're talking about one of the worst strategies in modern history. I'm not blaming Trump particularly for it, but his advisors, his health experts, they had bad models that we now know were way off on the hospitals, on the ventilators. Every number they crunched was wrong. They overcompensated, which is good. It's better to have more than less. But we know that happened. We see the effect it's having on the hospital industry and on nurses. They're not reversing. They're only getting more tyrannical. And Trump's idea of like a good time is flying Blue Angels over New York and New Jersey to be like, we support the nurses. If you support nurses, bro, put them back to work, How in the world is that? It just seems like a political stunt. It's really frustrating, especially if you live in the, in that area where it's like, bro, I can't go to the park without, getting in trouble. I can't go to the pizzeria. I can't go to the grocery store without wearing a mask and feeling like I'm in some sort of movie, all based off of data that we now know is incorrect. So it's like, I don't care. I'm sorry, bro. That to me, that's just a weird flex. Like right now, just like nurses are getting laid off, but here's some planes for you guys. Just put them back to work. Stop with this face plan. I don't agree with it, and I just think it's a bizarre, out of touch move by somebody that doesn't understand what the average worker is working with. You got farmers who are losing tens of thousands of dollars because they can't sell anything to restaurants. You got Tyson putting out ads saying the food chain is going to be broken. You got to get. I mean, that's just common sense. You can't put half the country out of work for how long? For a week, a month, a year? We've already pushed the limit. How long is it going to do this? I mean, people are hurting, and it's going to hurt the country and the world massively if they don't figure it out now. We don't need a spectacle. Thank you so much for being for being indoors. Bro, save it for a victory when we celebrate the fact that we're not being treated like prisoners as healthy citizens and innocent citizens anymore. So weird flex, and I've completely disagreed with a lot of what he's doing recently. He's talking about big testing. We got all the tests. We're going to test. Here's my thoughts about the testing. Optional testing is fine. If you want to get a test, go ahead. More tests, the better for people who want to get it. but I don't believe in mandatory testing. And if you really think about the logic of testing, what is testing going to do? If it's, I'm going to use this example, with sex. Sorry, just if you have sex with if you get an STD test and you're STD free, and then you have sex with 1,000 people, and then you say, look, I had an STD test 2 days ago. If you had sex with 1,000 people, that test doesn't mean anything anymore. That's what the testing is going to mean, and even Dr. Fauci said it. Unless you're getting tested every day, if you're interacting with thousands of people or hundreds of people, the test from 2 days ago doesn't matter. So the only way mass testing is going to work is if we turn into an Orwellian communist Chinese state of test, non-stop testing all the time, which is insane for a virus that we now know the death rate keeps getting lower and lower. And if you understand the amount of people who've died with COVID and the death rate and the mortality rate, it's really crazy. I mean, I already did the math earlier, and I'm not saying this is real, it's bad, people are dealing with it. But if you said the common cold, anybody who died with the common cold died of the common cold, you're talking about 60 million people a year get it. 2 to 3 million people die every year in the United States, and people are born. So you're talking about out of those 2 to 3 million people who died, what's the chances of them having the common cold? Do the same thing with COVID-19. Anybody who dies with COVID-19, they're saying is dying from COVID-19. If you have over 2 million people die in the United States and 1% of the population has COVID-19 or 10% of the population has COVID-19 or 20% of the population has COVID-19, do the math on how many COVID deaths there's going to be. This is never going to end, guys. So the testing thing, one, it makes no sense unless you're getting tested all the time, which is tyrannical. Two, when is this going to go away? This could be seasonal like the flu. And if you look at the rate, if they're going to count deaths from COVID as COVID, if they just had it and that wasn't the cause of death, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of COVID deaths every year. There's no way not to be. 2 to 3 million people die every year. They're speculating 20, 30% of the population can get it. Do the math, guys. If 30% of the population has it and 3 million people die every year, divided by roughly 3, that's going to be hundreds of thousands on the low end of COVID-19 deaths, regardless of what caused it. I mean, this is like basic third grade math that Trump's not understanding. And then he tweeted out an article today, and then I'm really going to get to questions. He tweeted out an article and the article said that 1/5 of deaths are in nursing homes. That's what it's like, 1/5 to 1/2 of deaths are in nursing homes. I don't know the exact number. I can't pull it up, but that was his, he's retweeting being like, that's a big amount of the deaths in nursing homes. Think about it, Trump. Please use your brain before you keep destroying this country. If 1/5 to 1/2 of the deaths are from nursing homes, what's going on in nursing homes? Let's put it together. Elderly people. What happens to elderly people who are in nursing homes? Why do you put someone in a nursing home? It means they're getting to the final stages of their life. God bless them. Hopefully they last for 10, 20 years. But overall, it's the end stages of somebody's life. That's why you're in a nursing home. They need help. They need nurses. They need a home. So, yeah, if 1/5 to 1/2 of the people are from nursing homes, and they're saying anybody with COVID is dying from COVID, how many of those people dying were going to die anyway? I'm not talking about, just some of these people, they're even, do I have to play the clip of it? She's saying they could be in hospice, they could be 2 weeks to live, and if they have COVID, even if we know it's not COVID, we're counting it as COVID death. So if you're talking about 1/2 to 1/5 of the deaths are from hello, bro, what do you think that means? Take 30,000 or 25,000 off the death count of those. How many people does that leave? And then you go down to healthy people that it's a crazy small percentage. I mean, if you take off the numbers that they're clearly, overcompensating for, this thing is really way better than we thought it was. I mean, this guy's got to wake up. Someone said Cuomo sent infected back to nursing homes. Yeah, I don't know about all that. I read that. But the strategy has been piss poor every which way. So there's hotspots in New York and New Jersey. So we're going to cancel elective surgeries all around the country. They're bankrupting the nursing industry. And we don't need a blue angel to wave at us when we can't leave our houses, guys. So he's got to wake the F up. I don't know. He's playing the wrong game. People think he has a secret plan. But he needs enough people to be like, dude, listen. It's not your fault, but at the same time, what is testing going to do, guys? Even Fauci admits you have to get tested every day. You get tested, you go out somewhere, your old test doesn't matter. You could have got it that day. Are you going to get tested every day? Every time you go to work, every time you leave work, every time you walk into the diner, every time you go to this? Is that the life you want to live for a virus that the death rate is now, at this point, we know with data, if you include antibody, it's lower than they suspected, much, much lower. I mean, there's no, if any virus or anything on the planet, if you had it, that's what took you, your life, even though it's not. It's actually mind-blowing that they have been able to keep the numbers this low. Of course there's going to be hundreds of thousands of COVID deaths this year. How could there not be? If anybody with the disease, as they're ramping up testing, more and more testing, everybody's get testing. Guys, you die, you smoke for 50 years, you have lung disease, you die. You had COVID-19, you died from COVID. You're in the hospital, you're in the hospice, you got 2 weeks to live, you have COVID, you died from COVID. There's no other virus on the planet that they do this type of math or science with. So, and I wasn't one to I'm not going to just say this because I know they're trying to censor people. I could find the video. They're bragging about doing this. It's not like my opinion. Here, let's play the video real quick just for the censors who are always freaking out. This is not some schmuck. This is like the lady who leads the Department of Health in Illinois. She's like the health leader who's doing press conferences.
Dying of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be as a COVID death. It means that even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So
this is not just a random, this is not David Icke or something, like people are like, oh my God, it's a conspiracy theory. This is the health, I got to look up her exact title, but she runs the health in Illinois. It means, this is a quote from her, technically, even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. Guys, if this is as contagious as they say it is, which it probably is, common cold, about 60 million people a year get a common cold. Millions of people die every year in the United States. If you do the math, 60 million people, that's we'll go on the low end, that's 1/6 of the entire U.S. population gets the common cold. So that's 1/6 of everybody who died of the common cold if you're doing the same math. If it's 2 million people divided by 6, you get 300,000 people, 350,000 people. Guys, this is the biggest scam ever. It's so obvious. It's like I've been putting it together, being rational, not jumping to conclusions. But when you have people admitting this, Dr. Birx admits that as well. It's like, how could you not? If this gets to 10-20% of the population, that means that's 1/5 of the population. If 1/5 of all the deaths that die every year are going to be COVID, it doesn't. Even if you die of a clear alternate cause and have COVID at the same time, it's still listed as COVID death. That's a quote. Who is she? Let me look up her title real quick. She is the director of the Illinois Department of Public Health. She's no small fry. She's the one doing the press conferences, speaking on behalf of Illinois' health program, guys. This is and what is YouTube going to do? What is Susan Wojcicki going to do? Delete every video under the sun? You can't delete my videos, Susan. I mean, you could try, but I'm using Dr. Birx. I didn't say it. Dr. Birx said it. The director of public health in Illinois said it. Dr. Erickson said it. Whether he's an MD or not, whether he has a practice or not, it's a common sense. Like, what else did he say that bothered you? He crunched numbers and made a mistake? We don't know the numbers. All we have is confirmed cases, which we know is nowhere near the amount of cases. If they say there's 1 million, 2 million cases, guys, if asymptomatic people have it and it says, you look at all the antibody tests. You had it 2 months ago. You had it. There's way more people that have it. That's a fact. And then we have the death rate, which we now know, even if you die of a clear alternate cause, they're counting it as COVID-19. And it's not even just if you get tested with COVID. Thousands of people are being added to the list from New York that never got a test. You can't make this crap up, guys. Everyone needs to see not only this video, my last video, especially, because I really lay it out there extremely clearly. And now I'm going to answer questions. And they've been bashing all sorts of, they've been bashing healed from AYTU and all this stuff. Look at the New York Times. Now my friend just texted it to me, but now they're saying men should take estrogen. This is in the New York Times. Men should take estrogen pills because women get COVID-19 less. So they're not okay with a NASDAQ trading company that has technology that's working with cedar cyanide. That needs to get deleted. But New York Times telling you to take estrogen pills is somehow okay. Guys, this is crazy world. And someone said about the COVID stuff, look at my last video. Elon Musk tweeted it and I shared it. It's USA Today, fact check. Are they getting paid more for ventilators and people on ventilators and hospital patients? Fact check, true. It's in USA Today. Even they can't deny it. So if they try to fact check my last video, they're going to fact check it with an article that's in the video. I agree with them on this one. Yeah, it is true. So, it's a fact. Everyone knows it. No one's denying it. Liberal media is not denying it. Conservatives aren't denying it. That's how they're dealing this. So there's absolutely incentive. But someone said, will COVID even be on the top 10 causes of death on true data? I don't know, but if you get what I'm saying, you guys are smart. If it's widespread and anybody with it died from it, even if that wasn't the cause of death, how is it not going to be? They're blowing the crap out of these numbers.